Welcome to Repum Group's Item 24, where we take you a step beyond the standard FDD. We asked ourselves, why stop at 23 items when some of the most important insights live beyond the page? Here we're breaking down the inner workings of franchising and sharing real-life strategies and stories that drive the industry forward. Welcome back to another episode of Item 24. Excited to talk about our topic today, which is food franchises versus non-food. So the first thing I always talk about with this is the fact that 50% or so of franchises out there are actually food. So you think about all the franchises that are out there, 50% are food, the rest are everything else. So talking a little bit about the food space and some differences between them. So when you start with thinking about a food business, everyone always talks about the startup cost, right? So when you think of restaurants typically are more expensive. I would say on the lower end of the spectrum, probably the quick serve or the kiosk based restaurants are probably going to be ranging between $250,000 to $400,000 to open. But I would say the most common that you would see is upwards of $1 million plus. If you think about opening a location that is a fast food type of business, it's probably going to be more than $2 million to open. And that's just because you have a lot that is involved with opening one of those locations. Think about the space that's needed, all the equipment that's needed, and then obviously all the signage and all the extra potential dining space you need if you have people that can dine in versus just fast and go from that perspective. So there's a lot of different things around the operational costs as well. And I would say that, ultimately most restaurants are going to have more employees than some of the other types of businesses, maybe in the home service sector or other retail-based businesses. And so when you think about what you're going to need to do when you open a food business, you're going to think about, do you want to manage those employees as a big part of it? Again, not all food franchises are that way. Some are, I would say, more light on that. And then the vast majority, though, do need a lot of part-time employees and then probably typically some full-time employees as well to manage the business. One other thing to consider when you're looking at food franchises, obviously we just talked a little bit about the amount of employees you might need to hire in order to manage the business and run it the proper way. The other thing is hours of operation. Typically a fast food brand, take example, the biggest one out there of like a Chick-fil-A or McDonald's, they're going to be open during the morning hours all the way till later in the evening. There's pros and cons to that, right? The pros are you're open a lot of hours to drive a lot of business. The cons are you have to manage that, right? And so just understanding the expectations that you're going to get into out of the gate are probably the most important thing. There are also other things to think about, which is if you want I'll call it a full service franchise that might be in the food business, which again, a lot of the fast food businesses fall into that category, right? You're going to have all the equipment to do all the cooking with hoods and so on, and making sure that you're able to see the opportunity there, but also understand what you're going to be required to do when it comes to managing that. One of the other things to consider is just the regulations that you'll face. Obviously with food service and serving the public, you've got to know that is a big part of being in the food business. And then the last thing I'll say is what type of food business you're going to get into. Again, full service is a little different. You're going to have more employees and you're going to have more things to manage when it comes to the cooking part of the business and the margins of the business potentially. Then there are businesses like a smoothie franchise, or in our case, we actually have a client within Repum, a partner that is called the Milkshake Factory. And that's a little bit more simplistic. There's no cooking, there is no hoods that you have to work and actually operate. This is a simple mix of product into a batch of ice cream, specifically vanilla ice cream. And then you're going to put that into different syrups and so on to create all the different flavors of milkshakes. So it's a little bit easier of a model to run. It's less employees that you need to operate the business on a day-to-day basis. And so really, I would say the most important thing to take away from all of this is just understanding the opportunity that's in front of you. I think food service is a great industry. Obviously, it's 50% of franchising, if not a little bit more. Typically, the other thing is the margins on the business can be a little bit different. The margins on food service are typically a little less than some of the other segments that are in retail, but they typically drive more top-line sales. So there's always a balance to everything. And so just consider all that when you're looking at franchises in the food service space.